So you start a new venture, you start something that is new and exciting and accelerating, and you're all pumped and ready to go. But then something happens that knocks you off your feet, that pulls the rug out from under you, and you start backpedaling. And the progress that you have made seems like it's dwindling and disappearing. And all of a sudden you find yourself wondering, what on earth just happened? How did I go backwards instead of going forwards? How did I get back to the spot where things are just feeling awkward and difficult, and like I don't even know which end is up, and like I don't know what to do? That is typically labeled self-sabotage. This tendency that we have sometimes to strive for something, have a goal, have a desire to reach something, have a dream or an ideal, and we start taking steps forward only to find that as we step forward, we stop ourselves dead in our tracks and we end up right back where we started or worse. Have you ever experienced that? Well, today on Sincerely Speaking, I want us to take some time to uncover why self-sabotage happens, where it comes from, and some things that we can start doing right now, today, to start shifting out of self-sabotage and into self-leadership. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcy Amar. I'm so glad to have you here. I don't take the fact that you're here lightly. I know that there's a million other things you could be doing, but I promise you this will be worth your while. Here in Sincerely Speaking, we explore all things to do with success, leadership, and communication. So my promise to you is that the time spent here is going to help you reach towards your goals with confidence, move forward faster, connect with the people around you in a more positive, productive, deeper way, and help propel you forward to the dream that you've been striving to achieve. Are you ready? This is going to be an amazing conversation. Oh, and before I let you go and before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and share it with anybody in your life that you know might find this helpful. Welcome to Sincerely Speaking. Welcome to the family. Okay, so this is a term I hear thrown around a lot, self-sabotage. Why do I self-sabotage? Why do we all self-sabotage? What is it even? Why does it happen? So today we're going to do three things that are really important. We are going to understand what self-sabotage really is. We're going to talk about where it comes from, why it happens, and we're going to also talk about what things we can start doing right now to start shifting out of this tendency to self-sabotage. And stick to the end, stick with me till the end, because I am going to share with you the F word that is going to help you step out of self-sabotage faster than anything else that we're going to talk about, right? So, and I promise you it's not what you're thinking about, so stick around to the end so you can find out what that F word is that I'm going to be talking about that is going to help you snap out of self-sabotage faster than anything else. So let's start at the beginning, right? Why does self-sabotage happen? I have a story for you. So when I started thinking about my business and what I wanted to do in my business, I had this idea, this notion that what I wanted to do was bring my 20 plus some years, 25 plus years of teaching experience into the marketplace and do something that helped me leverage everything that I had learned and gone through as a teacher. And what I first thought about, sorry, my glasses, I can't see. Anyway, so what I first thought about was working with families, parents of teens who might be struggling to connect with their teens, right? Because the bulk of my experience as a teacher was working with teens, and I had this track record of really attracting and building relationships, especially with those difficult teens that nobody else wanted to be around, right? And so I thought, well, I can definitely use this and I can help these parents. And so I started trying to connect with these parents. I started throwing some information out there, creating some content, doing some things, and I even started this podcast under that premise that I would help families with teens connect with their teens at a deeper level. The problem is that when I started my messaging and I started creating content and I started doing all these things, I started seeing all these challenges around the topic of connecting with your teen. And it's not necessarily that there wasn't a market for it. It's that I felt that a lot of people were offended by the insinuation that they didn't know how to talk to their teens or how to manage their connection with their teens. Plus, there's so much more understanding out there right now of what teens go through and why they are the way they are, that there's a lot of information out there that I would have had to counter and deal with. Anyway, very long story short, I started second guessing myself. So what happened was I already had some people that were looking for me, some people that were asking for my assistance, some people that were asking for my help. But all of a sudden, I started seeing all these other obstacles, all these other things, and I focused so much on them that I stopped myself dead in my tracks. And any progress that I had made, I lost. I went backwards. I pivoted, and I pretty much started over. And if that was the only time I did that, I would say, well, maybe that wasn't what I was meant to do. But in all honesty and in full transparency, I pivoted and basically had to start my business over 5 times before I made any real forward progress. And that is one way in which self-sabotage presents itself, right? So self-sabotage is not always as clear-cut as people make it out to be, which is what makes it kind of difficult, because self-sabotage can present itself in many different ways. Like you can, like me, start making progress and then second guess yourself and let doubt seep in, and then you backtrack and you go back to the beginning, you scratch everything. Like it's not even that I kept some things, I scratched everything and started back from zero. And self-sabotage can present itself that way, right? Like you are making forward progress and then suddenly you start doubting yourself and you start questioning everything that you have done, and you go back and you start over from scratch when you could have at least kept some of the things that you had. Or the other way that it sometimes presents itself is in paralysis by analysis. That's what I meant to say. So you start researching and you start looking for information and you start trying to figure out and understand, and you get into the space where you either have to feel like the time is perfect or you have to feel like you know everything you need to know before you take the first step, right? That is self-sabotage as well, because you're never going to be 100% ready and you're never going to know it all. Even after decades of doing the thing, you're not going to know it all. Sorry. So that is another way in which self-sabotage presents itself. Another way in which it presents itself is excuses, is allowing other things, especially external things, to become excuses or reasons why you can't move forward, right? And I say reasons between air quotes, right? And if you're listening to me, you can't see them if you're not on YouTube, but I'm doing air quotes around excuses or reasons, around reasons, because those reasons are really excuses. They're not really as important or as relevant. That's the word I was looking for. They're not really as relevant to your progress and your success as you're making them out to be. They're just becoming crutches or excuses for you to be able to live with the fact that you're not following through, right? For you to justify your lack of action or your lack of follow through or your lack of moving forward, right? The other way in which self-sabotage presents itself a lot is what is called resistance, right? So it's this feeling inside of you that gets all icky and nervous and just awkward and there's really no real way to explain it other than it just feels yucky. It feels awful. Anytime you start to try or you think about doing something that could move you forward, this feeling of uneasiness that is undeniable and really hard to shake off starts bubbling up. And you find yourself procrastinating or doing something else that feels important or that might move you forward, but that you deep down know it's just another distraction for you not to move forward and do the thing that you're supposed to do, right? And there's a million other ways in which self-sabotage can present itself, but those are some of the main ones, right? But anything that happens, anything that you allow to take hold of your attention, your focus, your energy, or your presence, so that the end result is that you don't take the necessary action to move forward towards your dream, is self-sabotage, or can be considered self-sabotage, right? So that is really important to note and to understand that that is what it feels like and looks like. So when you are really honest with yourself, and we're going to talk about clarity in a minute, but when you start really becoming self-aware being fully clear and present to what it is that you're experiencing and what the end result is, then you can start identifying your favorite form of self-sabotage. And we all have one, right? Mine is analysis paralysis. Like, I have to know, I have to research, I have to investigate, I have to get another course, I have to read another book, right? And I get caught in this cycle of learning and intake and getting information and getting training that I never end up using to the full extent of its capacity, because I'm in this paralysis caused by all the information that I'm allowing in, right? So it's important for each of us to sit down, be clear with ourselves, be honest with ourselves, to the point of brutal honesty about the shape, form, and flavor of our go-to self-sabotage technique, right? And we all have one. We all have something that we use. For you, it might be procrastination. For others, it might be working out, believe it or not. Like, if anytime you find yourself, you're going to sit down and you're going to do this thing that is uncomfortable, you're going to go live, you're going to make the phone call, you're going to go out and whatever it is, you end up thinking, oh wait, I need to go work out. The workout is a distraction, right? So in essence, it's really distractions, but what distraction are you allowing to get in the way, right? So the typical ones and the most, like the umbrella ones, right, that other things can fall under are analysis paralysis, distractions, procrastination, and doubt, right? Those are the big ones. And doubt is usually just, I can't do this. Who said that I could do this, right? A form of doubt is imposter syndrome. So who's going to listen to me? Why would they? There's nothing important I have to say that hasn't been said before. Who made me think that I could do this? Who made me think that this was something I needed to do, right? And under doubt, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute, is this worthiness piece, right? I doubt that I'm worthy of whatever it is that I'm working towards. I doubt that I have what it takes, or I doubt that I deserve, that I'm deserving of whatever it is that I'm aiming for, my dream, my goal, my objective, right? Whatever that might look like. So it's all these things wrapped up into just the summary of it is whatever gets in the way of you taking the action that you need to take in order to move forward, period. That's self-sabotage, right? And sometimes self-sabotage is so intense and so pervasive that it actually pushes you backwards. So something that you had moved forward on, suddenly you find yourself having to deal with again. And so that's one of the main reasons why it's so important for us to have this conversation and talk about what it is and where it comes from. And the next part is going to be the most important. And I apologize in advance because today's episode is probably going to be a little longer than we're accustomed to, but I think it's really important for us to take our time to talk about this. And of course, I won't be able to dive completely into it, but I invite you to go to my website, marciamaro.com, and there's several buttons, but any button will take you to a page where you can set up a conversation, a free 30-minute path paving call with me. We will go over in detail your specific circumstance, your specific situation, help you identify your own special brand of self-sabotage, and help you start taking steps towards getting on the other side of it, right? Overcoming it, rising above it. So why does self-sabotage happen? In my own experience and in my conversations with my clients and with my students, I have identified 4 main reasons why self-sabotage takes place. And honestly, they can all be condensed into one, but I'm going to break them down because it's hard for you to really identify how to tackle something when it's so huge, right? So instead of giving you the big umbrella, I'm going to give you the 4 main things that fall under that umbrella. And I'm not even going to mention what the big umbrella is because I don't want you focusing too much on that, but there's 4 things, right? The first one is identity incongruence. Identity incongruence. What do I mean by that? I mean that we don't do what we believe or what we think or even what we convince ourselves or what we know we should do. We do what we are, right? So anything that doesn't match our identity, our brain is going to work really, really hard to get you out of. Why? Because your brain is focused on comfort and survival, and comfort and survival both have to do with you being able to know who you are and do things that confirm that identity of who you are, right? So your brain is a confirmation machine. It looks for proof that what you believe is true. It doesn't want you uncomfortable. It doesn't want you to feel unsafe. And the easiest way to feel unsafe or uncomfortable is to have to question who you are and what you believe. Makes sense? So the moment you start doing something that doesn't match the identity that you have taken on, that you have accepted as yours up until now, your brain is going to start sending out alarms and letting you know, wait, you're stepping out of your area. You're going too far. This is not who you are. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is not going to work. Stop, and go back. And so we backpedal because what we're trying to do doesn't match who we are at the moment, right? So when your accepted and perceived identity doesn't match the result that you're working towards, your brain is going to go off on all sorts of crazy alarms, and it's going to stop you from moving forward, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do with this in a minute. The second reason why this happens is there's a value disconnect. And I've talked about this in several other episodes, but the value disconnect is we all have core values, and these values are the filters for our decision making, and they're the filters that we use to determine whether something is good or bad or in between. They are what we rely on in order to help us determine whether something we're doing is worth doing or not, and whether something we're doing is harmful or helpful, whether it is enough of a reward that we want to move forward, or if it's too risky that we need to step back, right? And when there is anything that challenges your core values that you have to do in order to move forward, your own value system is going to be like this rope pulling you back, going, no, wait, this is not this is not acceptable. We don't do this. This is not who we are, right? And it ties into our identity. All of these things tie together, really, but nope, you're not going to do this. And it keeps pulling you back. A clear example of this is when I started my business. And I use this as an example because I experienced so much self-sabotage that I think it it collects a lot of what we're going to be talking about. But when I first started my business, one of the things that happened is I still had a full-time job. I have a husband, I have 2 daughters, and I was starting a business, so I was having to use some of the time at home in order to work towards building my business, right? So what that ended up feeling to me was like I was abandoning or robbing my daughters from time that belonged to them, or my husband from time that belonged to him. And one of my core values is family, right? So when I started trying to do all these things and I started working towards building all these things, something inside of me kept telling me, but wait, what about your family? You're abandoning your family for this thing? Is this thing really more important than your family? Are you really going to sacrifice your kids for this thing? Right? And so I kept holding myself back, and I kept getting pulled like that rope that I mentioned, right? Back into not doing or settling or going back into analysis or putting things off or just simply not doing because something inside of me was battling against what I needed to do in order to move forward, because it felt like going against my core value, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do about that in a minute. Like all these things, we're going to talk about what to do in the next section. So then it's vision and coherence. So identity and congruence, right? So your identity doesn't match where you want to go. Value disconnect. So something you have to do in order to get to your goal clashes with one or more of your core values. And vision and coherence is when whatever it is that you're aiming to do is not or does not look like it's going to help you come closer to your vision, right? So you have a vision or a calling. I call it a calling. You have this calling that it's this grand, massive thing that is connected to a grander purpose, that is what you ultimately are living towards, that it's what your life gets meaning from, that it's what you strive to leave as your legacy or as your mark in the world, but you're doing this thing that has absolutely nothing, I mean, nothing to do with that vision or that calling, or at least seemingly nothing to do with that vision or that calling. And so that incoherence, that lack of integrity or unity in this thing that you're doing and your calling, right? They don't seem to mesh. They don't seem to help move you in that direction, is going to stop you, because it's going to feel like a waste of time in your core, right? It's going to feel like, okay, why am I wasting my time doing this, when in reality what I ultimately want to do is this, and this thing that I'm doing is not moving me forward. It's not moving me closer to that thing. And then the final reason why self-sabotage happens is this worthiness or conversation, right? Or lack thereof. So when we are in attempting to do something we've never done before, attempting to do something that feels big, that feels important, and we are attempting to get something into our lives, into our sphere, into our existence that is good, that is amazing, that it's wonderful, we start wondering, okay, do I really deserve this? Do I really have what it takes? Am I really worthy of being entrusted with this massive thing that is so important in the world? Is it really meant for me? And those worthiness conversations hold us back, keep us stuck, keep us from moving forward, keep us in this space where things just don't happen, because we're not believing, right, that we can in fact elevate ourselves to that level, that we can in fact be worthy, and that we are in fact worthy right now of this thing, right? So what can we do to start moving in the direction of achieving these things and moving out of self-sabotage and getting to the other side and actually achieving these things that we've been looking to? So I'm going to cover four things that are going to help us start moving, and then at the end I'm going to give you the F word that is going to propel you out of self-sabotage faster than anything else, right? So the first thing, and this is the first thing I mentioned for anything, so if you've been listening to me for a while, or if you've followed me on social media at all, you've heard me say this before, but I believe everything meaningful starts with clarity or awareness, however you want to call it. So everything meaningful, anything important, anything worthwhile, we need to first start with full-on, unadulterated, unfiltered clarity and awareness. So what do we need to become clear on? Well, we need to start by being really clear on what our calling is and everything that that calling entails, right? Because like I said before, one of the things that happens is we fall into vision incoherence, and we can't see how this thing that we're doing fits into this bigger picture of what we aim to create or what we know we're called to create. So the very first thing is to get really, really clear on what it is really that you want and what your ultimate calling or goal is. Now, this is a long process that I walk my clients through, that we take usually a week to really get through the entire process. But I'm going to give you one quick snippet to help you get on there. You know, I believe in timers, so set a timer for 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, and sit down with a blank sheet of paper or a blank page in your journal. At the top of that page, write down this question: what do I really want? What do I really want? Once that is set up, turn on your timer and write nonstop for 10 minutes anything that comes to mind to answer that question. What do I really want? What do I really want? After you're done with the 10 minutes, set it aside. Go for a walk. Go spend some time with somebody you love. Go distract yourself for a minute. I'm not big on distractions, but sometimes they're important, right? So go put your mind on something else and come back after at least an hour. Don't go back before the hour. It's going to be too fresh, right? So go cook dinner, or go do your laundry, or go walk, or whatever for an hour, and then come back. When you come back, sit down and reread everything that you wrote down. And two things are going to happen. Some things are going to make you chuckle almost. And that's ridiculous. Where did that come from, right? I want you to highlight those things. Don't cross them out. Just highlight them or underline them in some way. Then the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to start noticing some patterns, some things that repeat. So on a separate sheet of paper or on the bottom of that paper, start writing down those patterns that you notice, right? And when you look at those two things, the things that you marked, highlighted, or underlined, and the things that you wrote down that are patterns, you're going to start thinking to yourself either some questions or some statements like, I didn't realize that somewhere in me there's this desire to do this, right? Write those questions down or write those statements down. And after you are done with that section, take another quick break. Then come back and look at everything all together and see what your heart tells you about those patterns. Look back to your history and see which of those patterns are things that you have had in your heart and in your mind since you were little, and you keep ignoring it and pushing it aside and not doing anything about it, because that is most likely very closely related, if not the definition of what your calling is. So that is going to help you see exactly where you need to go and where you get to go, right? So that is one quick exercise to do. But what you're also going to notice is that all these other things that you wrote down on that paper might include some things that are related to this other thing that you're pushing aside that you don't think matches your vision. If it came up in the brainstorm, there's a way to match it to your vision. Get creative and get curious about what that way might be. Right? The second thing is do a quick value assessment. And if you are unclear on how to do a value assessment, I have a sheet that can help you get through it. Send me an email at marcy@marcyamara.com and I will send you a copy of that worksheet to help you work through mapping your values and making sure that you know exactly what your core values are. But the point is, we all have anywhere between 3 really and 10 core values that dominate everything that we do. And I believe that if you're getting to 10 or past 10, then there are some that can be consolidated, because I think we should all narrow it down to less than 7. If we have more than 7, we're confusing ourselves, right? So do the exercise of figuring out what your 3 to 7 core values are. I usually say 5 to 7, but 3 to 7, 3 is enough. More than 7 is too many, right? So 3 to 7 core values. Do the exercise of figuring out what they are. And then anything that is becoming difficult or challenging, or that you identify yourself sabotaging yourself around, go back to your core values and ask yourself the question, is what I'm trying to do in any way competing with any of these? And how can I make it so that it no longer competes, right? For me, it was a matter of setting aside an hour every day to dedicate to my daughters. That is non-negotiable, that it's their hour, that I don't even answer the phone in, because it's their time, right? And any other time that I used outside of that, I felt better about, because I had already spent, or I knew I would be spending, an hour of present, non-negotiable, connected time with my daughters and my husband, right? So find a way. Get creative around, get innovative around, and imagine and use your imagination to figure out how you can stop that conflict between what you're trying to do, what you're wanting to achieve, and the core value or values that this is fighting against. Next, let's talk about our thoughts, right? And let's talk about the way we talk about ourselves, because a lot of self-sabotage, like I said, comes from worthiness conversations, and those conversations are internal. Those are things we tell ourselves, like, who's going to listen to me? What made me think I could do this? I'm an idiot. What makes me believe that I'm suited to do this, right? Whatever. So all those conversations are internal. But if you notice, most of them are questions, right? Like, think back to what I just said. Who's going to listen to me? What makes me think I can do this? What, right? So they're all questions, or most of them are questions. So the tool here, is to come up with a set of 5 to 10 empowering questions that you can use to shift out of that worthiness conversation or lack of worthiness conversation that you're having, right? So when you're asking yourself, who's going to listen to me, maybe shift it to asking, who can I help today? When you're asking yourself, what makes me think I can do this? Maybe shift it to asking, what can I learn from what I'm going through? Or what experience do I have that I can use to support others or to support what I'm trying to do? You see? So that shifting, when you catch yourself asking questions that lead to believing you're not worthy of doing or having or being, then shift them to questions that are going to focus on service and that are going to focus on action and on doing things that are going to move you and propel you forward. Because action will always trump self-sabotage. If you take action, if you can get yourself to do something, that is going to stop the self-sabotage right there. All right. The next thing is when you're dealing with identity issues, and I know this is cliche almost now. I know it's something that has become trite, but it really is true that the right order of things is be, do, have. You need to be before you can do, before you can have, right? So the question here is, who do I need to be in order to move forward? Who do I need to be in order to get past this? Remember that any new level that you reach is going to require a shift in your identity, is going to require you becoming someone else. And that is painful and that is difficult because you're putting to bed, you're actually killing your old self. So there's a mourning period, right? And you're becoming someone else. So that process is painful, but it's essential because the mind and the person that created where you are today cannot see past right now, and they will keep you in a loop of repeating the same things over and over and over and over. So in order to get past it, you need a new identity. You need to figure out who you are moving forward. That's why I use the wayfinder identity in my programs with my clients and with myself, right? Because if I'm a wayfinder, then I am going to keep moving towards a destination regardless of what's happening in front of me. If I'm a wayfinder, I know that I have a commitment to reach that destination no matter how many times I have to take detours or figure out a new route or discover something new or enlist someone's help. It doesn't matter, right? So as long as I know that I am the person that's going to get to that destination, then everything else will work itself out. Everything else will happen one way or another, right? So it's that understanding that you get to be someone new every time you step into a new space, into a new possibility. And that doesn't mean that you're fake or that you fake it till you make it or that you stop being yourself, right? You're always going to be you, just an elevated, better version of you. So what does that look like? Envision it, embrace it, live it, embody it, put it in your system. Walk, talk, and act like you already are that person. And it doesn't mean fake it till you make it. It's not. It's be it. Now, you know what that looks like. So start acting that way. Start being that person, right? And then take inventories of the things that you have that are proof that you can move forward, right? One very important inventory I have all my clients go through, it's what I call a crops inventory. So you list your competencies, so the things that you're good at that you do well, the trainings, the education, the books, the experiences, anything that you have that you can use to step forward and to keep going forward or to help others move forward and get to where you're already at and maybe even follow you as you move forward, right? So all the competencies, all the skills or the talents, abilities, all the knowledge, all the experiences, anything that you have that is now part of your wisdom, that is part of your inner workings, put it under competencies, right? Then resources are external things. So what things, people, tools, strategies can you bring to the table? Can you pull from? Can you request? And yes, that includes money, right? I summarize resources in time, talents, treasures, and teams. So what time do you have available? right? And how do you manage and use your time? What tools or skills can you use to leverage your time better? Talents, again, skills. What things can you learn or bring or use or try or take, or right? Treasures. Treasures include money, but they're not just money. If you have a car, that's a treasure. If you have a house, that's a treasure. Anything material that can become a tool or a resource for you to move forward falls under treasures. And then finally, teams. What people? Mentors, coaches, teammates, employees, family members. What people are there that you could lean on, that you could enroll into your vision, that you could bring into whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? Then always opportunities. What opportunities are in front of you that if you capitalize them, if you took the risk, if you did the thing, would propel you forward to the next level? And then what decisions? What is the plan? What are you going to do now? What are you going to do this week? What are you going to do this month? What are you going to do in 6 months? What are you going to do to move forward? When you have that inventory of things, and when you do the plan section, is anything that you could do, right? Not what you decided yet to do. These are the decisions you're going to be making, right? So sit down and write as many things as come to your mind as things you could do, even if they sound ridiculous at first. But what are some things you could do? What are all the things you could do to move you forward in whatever it is that you're trying to do? And then from that pool of options, from that pool of plan, activities, actions, things, then you can start making decisions about what to try first, right? And try it with the mindset of you're going to prove that this works. You're going to prove that this is right. And time is really getting away from me, so I'm going to move on. So what is the F word without which none of this really works? What is the F word that is going to get you out of this stage of self-sabotage faster than anything else? What is this F word that is going to propel you forward in ways that you never imagined or envisioned? The F word is faith, right? And I'm not talking just faith in the religious sense, even though that's important. I'm talking faith in the sense that faith means that you see what isn't as though it was. So faith is understanding that until you can see it, you can't have it. That until you can see it, you can't move forward confidently. That until you can see it, you can't really believe it. So it's that level of faith where you look at what you're trying to do, where you look at the end result, where you look at where you're moving towards, and you see it. You see it as done. You see it as there. You hold in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, in your soul, this belief that is there, even when it isn't tangibly there, right? So I took a lot longer than I usually do, so I am going to wrap this up really quickly and make you one final invitation. And first, I actually am going to start with the invitation. If anything that I said today sounds like something that you might want to work on, but you're not sure how to get started, or if you know there's a direction that you get to go into, if you know that you get to step out of self-sabotage and into self-leadership and become the person that you know you were created, designed, and meant to be, so that you can step up, step forward, and help those people that only you can help, then go to marciamorrow.com. Click the schedule my free call today button and schedule some time for us to chat. I'm looking forward to meeting you. I'm looking forward to helping you elevate yourself to the next level. I'm looking forward to helping you reach that new level that only you are capable of reaching, that only you are meant to be at. And I'm looking forward to seeing who you become in the process. So go to marciamorrow.com, click the button, schedule the call, and we will talk about all the amazing possibilities that are not yet fulfilled, but that get to be, especially if you're looking to fill them and make them a reality before the year ends, right? And so, the quick recap. Self-sabotage comes in its whole, right? Like overall, it comes from a disbelief that you are the right person to do the thing that you're aiming to do. And that breaks down into identity incongruence, value disconnect, vision incoherence, or lack of worthiness conversations. And the way you start stepping out of that is by being really clear on your vision, or calling and your values, by watching your inner conversations and shifting the questions that you ask yourself, by being today the person you need to be in order to do the thing, by running those inventories so that you realize that you have everything you need in front of you in order to move forward, and most importantly, by embracing and living the F word and having faith, seeing it as though it was, even though it isn't yet. Now, I really hope this has been helpful. Share it with someone who might need it, and I will see you next week here on Sincerely Speaking. Bye.